Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You've just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. And as always, we'll be getting into broadcasting to these terrestrial affiliates across North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, KPNL, and Odyssey Radio. Remember, you can access our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. While you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the SOR Newswire, get some official Spaced Out swag, plus rock out to some Bumblefoot and so much more. You know what? I feel like hopping into the After Hours studio here. There we go. There we go. We're back home. So we'll be rocking with the After Hours backdrop and theme tonight. Definitely appreciate everybody coming on in. Tonight, we're going to have a great show. We have Ronald Murphy Jr., who's going to be joining us, the cryptid guru. So we're going to be getting into a lot of cryptid talk. And, you know, this is, like I always say, this is a field that I'm kind of just getting used to and getting versed with. So we'll be learning a lot and hearing some great encounters from our guest tonight. Definitely want to go ahead and welcome our guests in to the show tonight. Let me see who has decided to join us here. Let me go ahead and check Race Fan because he's always on top of it. Race Fan says, Race Fan with the gold, Michael Fontaine with the silver, and then SJ with the bronze. Let me go ahead and see who else has joined us tonight. We should have a packed house coming off of Jackson Lee, Element 115. Congratulations to them on the first show. Way to get it going. Way to kill it on the first episode there. We'll be looking forward to checking them out every Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific, right before Dave Scott, normally here on these Fridays. As you know, Dave Scott is out in the woods, looking for Bigfoot, searching for Bigfoot. I think Merle is there, Samantha Moet, and a few other people I can't think of right now. I talked to Dave probably about an hour ago, a little over an hour ago, right before he was about to go out of service. And I told him, stay safe out there, man. Stay safe. He said, if we get anything, you will be the first to know. So that's awesome. So I'll be checking my phone just in case Dave Scott decides to chime in. And also, he said they'll be there until Sunday evening. And he said, unless something goes wrong where they have to leave early. So we definitely hope everyone out there stays safe. If you do run into the big guy out there, just make sure you're prepared for the encounter. And I don't have to tell him, he's bumped into the things so many times. So with that being said, let's go ahead and see who else we got here. We got Tomato Man coming in saying, hi, everyone. Hey, Tomato Man, thanks for coming on in. Decided to use the after hours backdrop tonight because it's just more comfortable for me. Let's see. We got Ann B saying, hello, everyone. Hello, Ann B. Thanks for coming on in. Race fan, once again, who had the gold. Thanks for coming on in. Robert Lamar Jr. saying, hello, Dave. Dave Scott is in the woods right now. Robert Lamar Jr. will be there for the next few days. Thanks for coming on in. Deb from Sacramento, the capital of California, by the way, saying, is Rob G hosting tonight? Well, here I am. I'm right here right now. Let's go. Let's see. Who else do we have? We got Deidre C stepping in. Hello, Deidre C. She's saying, good evening to everyone. Good evening. All right. Thanks for coming in, Deidre C. We got Tim in the backwoods saying, evening, everyone. Bouncing between here and Element 115. Awesome show. Yeah, definitely. Definitely is. Definitely a great addition to the fold. And we're gonna be killing it here for the rest of 2024. Yeah, as you know, we're taking a break soon as well from these shows, the live shows, to go ahead and revamp everything, get everything on point. So it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Let's see. We got Eternity Eternal stepping in saying, hi, Dave and SOR fans. And then, hi, Rob G. Hey, Eternity Eternal. Thanks for coming on in and joining us here tonight. It's going to be an awesome show. I am Pam saying, hello, all. I am Pam. Thanks for coming on in and supporting the show tonight. We do appreciate you. We have Lee the B. Hey, Dave and Tomato Man, and SOR friends, or with the SOR friends, rather. Lee the B. Thank you so much for coming on in and joining us tonight on this fantastic evening. We do appreciate you showing up. Let's see. We have W. David Page saying, hi, all. Hi, W. David Page. Thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you showing up. Thanks for coming on into Spaced Out Radio, filling in for Dave Scott tonight. I almost wanted to say after hours, but filling in for Dave Scott tonight. Let's see. We have Swamp Gas Jenkins. Okay, I like that name. Greetings, everyone. Wavy hand emoji with the smiley face. We do appreciate you coming on in, Swamp Gas Jenkins. Who else do we have here? We have Lars Jansen. Lars Jansen saying, good morning, all, with the heart emoji and the horn emoji. Yes, that's how we get it started. Spreading the love out there. Let's get it in tonight. Who else do we have? The Radio Wendigo. All right. Saying, hey, everyone. Thanks for coming on in, Radio Wendigo. And anytime I see a name that's new to me, I just like to take a pause, kind of let you know what's going on. I don't know if you just saw the show previous to this, but we have Element 115 with Jackson Lee. That's every Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific to 9 p.m. You have Dave Scott, conductor of the Woo Train, Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till midnight. So normally he would be here, but I'm filling in tonight. And then you have me on the weekends, Spaced Out Radio after hours, Saturday and Sunday, 8 p.m. Pacific until 11 p.m. So make sure you're here for that tomorrow. If you're here tonight, make sure you're here tomorrow as well. Awesome guest. I think we have Deb Shakti. And then on Sundays, you got Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Huntress, who comes in 7 p.m. Pacific until 8 p.m. right before the after hours. So we have 7 days a week, almost 365. Awesome content here all the time. Make sure you show up. Thanks for coming in and supporting the show. You got Area 51. We have an Area 51 sighting. I don't do I have an air horn? I don't have an air horn. But thanks for coming on in, Area 51. Long time no see, buddy. It's been a while. You know, we bring the heat, never bring the sleep. You know that. That's the motto. Appreciate you coming on in, Area 51. And nice to see you back, buddy. Appreciate you. Let's see. Who else do we have here? We got Simon the Likeable saying, line them up. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Is line them up, Simon and Likeable. Thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you coming into the show tonight. We got Daniela. Daniela saying hello, everyone. Hello, Daniela. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you coming to the show tonight. It's gonna be an awesome one, definitely. We got the Cryptid Guru. The name says it all. The name says it all. Who else do we have? We got Bob Perkins, a guru. Okay, you're a guru as well. Okay, do appreciate you coming in, Bob Perkins. Thanks for showing on up. Let's see, who else do we have here? Let's get down the list. Yes, aloha, Dave, saying buenos noches a todo de Mexico. Good evening to everyone from Mexico, right? Aloha, Dave, keeping us bilingual, and we love it. Thanks for coming in, Aloha, Dave. Thanks for showing up tonight to the show. We do appreciate you coming on in. Who else do we have? We got Brown Dwarf, all the way from Southern California. Make sure you go check out his shop and his YouTube channel. The guy is multifaceted, multi-talented. Thanks for coming in, Brown Dwarf. We do appreciate you showing up and supporting like you always do. Yes, sir. We have Paramar coming in saying howdy, folks. Hey, Paramar, thanks for showing up tonight. We do appreciate you. Who else do we have? Deanna Ann saying hello. Hello, Deanna Ann. Thanks so much for showing up. We appreciate you. Phil the Stalker says, hey, I'm here for the theme music. Yeah, you're right. It's an awesome, awesome intro that Dave Scott has there. No doubt about that. We're going to be getting into some good stuff, Phil. So thanks for coming in. Thanks for showing on up. Let's see. Oh, Daniela's speaking back. ¿De qué parte de México no me digas la capital como todos yaha? Okay. Maybe. I think I got it. Thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you showing up. Christine Lynn saying, hey, Christine Lynn, thank you for showing up. We appreciate you coming on in. Thanks for supporting us tonight. We got Reverend Cosmic Joe Chronicles saying, sup right back to you. Reverend, we do appreciate you coming on in tonight. What else we have? We got Travis Moostus, Travis W saying, hi, my friends. Hi, Travis. Thanks for coming on in. Thanks for showing up tonight. We appreciate you coming into the show. Who else do we have? T-Bone. T-Bone is in the building. Thanks for coming on in, T-Bone. Supporting us like you always do, and we love it. Yes, sir. We got Corey saying hello, Dave, and SOR. Hey, Corey, thanks for coming on in. We do appreciate you showing up, coming into the show tonight. Filling in for Dave Scott, filling big shoes. You know how we do here. Let's see. Who else do we have? We have Stu Gerson. Stu Gerson saying, Rob G, thanks for coming on in, Stu Gerson. We appreciate you showing up here to Spaced Out Radio on a Friday. Haven't been here on a Friday in a while. Let's see. Who else do we have here? We are moving down the list here. Do we have nope. Melvin from Mars saying, hello, SOR peeps. Thank you for coming in, Melvin from Mars. Thanks for showing up tonight. Warden Dragon. Hi, SOR. Hey, Warden Dragon. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for joining us tonight. Let's see. Paranormal Pixie Laura saying, good evening, folks. Good evening, Pixie. We do appreciate you showing up and bringing the axe with you. Thanks for showing up tonight. And yeah, you already know the trolls beware. The Paranormal Pixie swings that axe, the mighty axe. Who else do we have? We have Stargazer coming in saying, I made it through day 2 of Hellfest. Okay. All right, not sure what that is, but I'm glad you made it through and glad you made it here tonight. We do appreciate you. Let's see. Who else do we have here? We have David Hayworth saying, eat the reptilians. Got a story about some reptilians later on in the show in hour 3, so make sure you stick around for that. Courtesy of PhantomandMonsters.com and Lon Strickler. Thanks for coming in. Who else do we have? Tolo. I'm in the woods as well. Okay. All right. Let me know if you see anything out there. Keep an eye out for the Bigfoot, for the Sasquatch, Dogman, whatever it is you may run across. Keep us informed, Tolo. Thanks for coming in. We got Ghost. Who or what is the real guru? Well, we're going to find out tonight. We got the cryptid guru who will be joining us tonight, so it should be awesome. Who else do we have? We got JSCO77 saying hello. Hello, JSCO77. Thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you showing up to the show tonight. Let's see. Van Gold saying, hey, Smooth, Rob G at Spaced Out Radio Family. Thanks for coming in, Van Gold. We do appreciate you. It's not a show without Van Gold. Thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you showing up. Who else do we have here? We have Gary Russin. Gary Russin or Russin? Russin. One of the two is correct. Thanks for coming on in, Gary, saying hi, everyone. Hi, right back to you. We do appreciate you showing on up. Yes, we do have Ron J saying Robert. Okay, yes. Thanks for coming in, Ron J. We do appreciate you showing up tonight. Let's see. Who else do we have here? I think we're almost done here. We got Jim. Thanks for coming on up, saying sup? Question mark? Yeah, sup. Right back to you. Thanks for coming on in. Let's see. Who else do we got? We're almost there. Jorgensen saying salutations, good people. Thanks for coming on in. Jorgensen, we do appreciate you showing up to the show tonight, as well as Susan Alloway. Susan Alloway is here saying, hey, Rob G and everyone. Hey, Susan Alloway. Thanks for coming in. We do appreciate you coming to the show tonight. Let's see. Who else do we have? Moving. Simply Coco's Evening Rob and SOR Roomies. Thank you, Simply Coco, for coming on in. We do appreciate you showing up to the show tonight. Blue Cruise here early. Blue Cruise tuned in. Hello all. Thank you for coming on in, Blue Cruise. We do appreciate you showing on up. And let's see, moving down. Who else do we have here? Who else has decided to come in? Necessary Dialogue with the wavy hand emojis. Right back to you, Necessary Dialogue. Thanks for coming on into the show tonight. It's going to be awesome. I promise. Let's see, who else do we have? I think we are, the Ferret saying hi, everyone. SOR, appreciate you coming in, Ferret. As always, yes, it's looking good, and I appreciate you guys all coming on in tonight. It's going to be an awesome show. Paramarv. I always say names twice, but Paramarv, thanks for coming on in. We do appreciate you showing on up. Let's see. Did I miss anyone? I definitely can't miss W. Decker. Hey, W. Decker, saying, hey, Mr. Rob G, thanks for coming on in, W. Decker. We appreciate you, buddy. Appreciate you coming on in. And yeah, we are now current. So yeah, we're definitely glad to be here with you tonight. As you guys already know, I said hi to you, Van Gogh, but I'm going to say it again. Yes, Van Gogh, 24K Van Gogh. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate you. Yeah, so we're getting into the show tonight. It's going to be an awesome show. Dave Scott is, like I said earlier, if you missed it, he's in the woods. He's out there with Merle. He's out there with Samantha Mowat, and they're doing something wild out there. I don't know if I would be in attendance for what they're going to do, but some of the things that they're going to come across, we may actually end up being able to speak to with our guest tonight, the Cryptid Guru. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to bring him in. His name is Ron Murphy, and he's been investigating the stuff of nightmares for over 30 years. He has investigated the things that go bump in the night and meticulously researched the historical and psychological context of myths and legends from around the world. Mr. Murphy seeks to uncover the archetypal precedent for the monsters that haunt our collective thoughts. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in our guest for tonight, Mr. Ronald Murphy. Hello, sir. How are you tonight?
Hello. I'm doing great, my friend. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good. So glad to meet you. And a name like the Cryptid Guru, I mean, it says a lot. It says a lot. So I anticipate learning a lot from you tonight, sir.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, Dave actually gave me that name.
Oh, you did.
He did. He did. Yeah. So the first show I'd ever done on the paranormal was actually Dave Scott's show, Spaced Out Radio. So we're going back. Oh, I don't know. It was within the first year that he started, and I wrote a book called The Unexplained World of the Chestnut Ridge, and he was the first person to have me on his show, and I've been keeping up with him ever since, and he's been doing the same for me.
That is awesome. That actually means then you're Spaced Out Radio family. So
Oh, it absolutely. Every time I'm on this show, it feels like coming home. So I'm very indebted to everybody here, the listeners, the hosts, and everybody else. You're great. Dave's awesome. I've been on with Jessica a couple of times. I absolutely adore her. So yeah, everybody here, they make me feel very comfortable. The hospitality is great, and I'm glad to be here tonight with you, my friend.
man, thank you so much. And we appreciate you coming in with us. Reverend Cosmic Joe Chronicles, thank you so much for the super chat. I'm not normal. I am paranormal, you think. Thank you for that. We do appreciate your support of Spaced Out Radio. And so, yeah, just kind of jumping into it as with any first time meeting like this, would like to, know, what got you into this? Did you have experiences from a young age, or is this something that came recently for you? Would you mind jumping into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think I owe everything that I'm researching now to my mom. She was an avid reader. She was voracious to learn all kinds of things out there. And one of her interests was the paranormal. And I grew up a child of the 1970s. So if you ever watch Stranger Things, that's basically what it was like, except with the upside down. We didn't have that. But yeah, my mom and we would watch, In Search of, with Leonard Nimoy, and we would listen to the radio because about once a month out of Pittsburgh, there would be a researcher named Stan Gordon that would come on, and he would talk about the encounters that people were having in and around where I lived, and my mom would take us out the next day, and we would do our own little field work and our investigations. So much of this has to do with my love of just being around my mom. That's really the truth of the matter. We would read together. This was a good bonding time. And then I got older, and these wonderful monsters still followed me around, and that led me, whenever I went to college and I started to research into history and psychology, and I thought, I still have this fundamental quest for knowledge concerning these monsters, and how could I relate my education to this? So I started to look at all these kind of legends through different types of lenses, and I found, a very fascinating story that's being told. I think that these cryptids are really embroidered into our DNA. I say this all the time. They need us as much as we need them. It makes us more human. We think that we know everything there is to know. We chart the stars. We know what's going to happen 1,000 years from now in the nighttime sky. We've conquered the world around us by having electricity, and we can lock our doors, but we still have a fundamental need to have monsters. And that's because they put us in our place. All that hubris that we have as human beings is kind of stripped away whenever we are confronted by something that we don't understand. And those things that haunt the periphery and those things that lurk around in the shadows still give us pause even today. Even in our 21st century world, we're all linked together by the internet, and everything is so cosmopolitan, and there should be no reason to fear the darkness. Yet here we are having a discussion, an intelligent discussion about things that go bump in the night. And, and these kind of forums I really am drawn to, because, we're waiting for word. Maybe Dave is going to be onto something tonight. We have people, the viewers come in and they chime in with their stories. And this is how we learn. and this is how we have a dialogue about these things.
That is an awesome, yeah, you're right. Awesome explanation there. And you're totally correct. This is why we have these conversations. Interesting. One thing you said there, being exposed to this and introduced to this with your mother and being able to share this, like I've never heard that. A lot of people have come along. Usually the parents aren't into the subject, so it's kind of a stigma created within the family. But being able to grow up with a mother that was totally into looking into these cryptids had to be awesome. What were some of the things that you guys saw early on? Some of the things you
Well,
may have encountered.
yeah, well, that's great because, like most investigators, I've never really encountered the creature, any monsters really. Some anecdotal things, things that could have been a partial footprint, strange sounds. But what was instilled in me from a very early age was a simple respect for the outdoors, that, we were entering a rather sacred domain, that, it was kind of up to me to have a bit of stewardship towards the world around me. Deer lived here, different types of birds and all these different kind of animals, a myriad of creation took up this place that we call the forest around us. So not only were we looking for Bigfoot, but we were also paying great attention to the animals around us. And it was a great thing growing up, because then it made me also respect just nature in and of itself, And I think that we need that nowadays. I think that a lot of people are going out there into the woods and they see it almost as kind of like a paramilitary type of proving ground where they don't respect anything, and they're tearing things up. But I think if order to make contact or to capture evidence of this creature, we really have to get into that kind of frequency, that natural ebb and flow by which nature operates. I don't think that we're ever going to find anything by going out there and being destructive or being confrontational. I think the way we understand the world around us is by letting events unfold around us. And that's the way I approach this. I think that one of the reasons why Dave calls me the crypto guru is because I do have a little bit of a romantic interest in the paranormal. This idea that there is, it's a philosophy. It's almost a quasi-religious thing as well too, that we are part of this mysterious world. Only have we've only really scratched the surface. The oceans are unexplored, and there's great forests that have been unexplored, and we're all kind of a part of this. We're all kind of that part of that infinite chain of being, and we're not outside looking in. We are indeed part of this whole thing that we call life around us. And I think that when we start thinking in those terms, that we are part of and not separate from, then we even grow greater with respect for that which we don't understand.
Wow, yeah, you're right. That's awesome as well. Awesome perspective and way to look at it. And a lot of people should feel like that. So like becoming one with nature, because you are essentially a part of this ecosystem that we have here on Earth. So that's a great way to approach it. And I think that's the first time I've heard someone explain it that way as well. When you get into cryptids, so which one is at the top of your list? Which one do you find yourself researching the most?
It's always going to be Bigfoot for me. Always. That was my main thing growing up. So Bigfoot was one of these kind of icons, I guess, in the pantheon of the cryptozoological, that was both very attractive to me as a young kid and also very frightening as well too. I was drawn to it, but there's something about an entity that looks so much like us yet is still wild, right? I mean, that throws us off a little bit, because we're not really looking into a mirror. as Friedrich Nietzsche would say, that the longer we stare at the abyss, sooner or later the abyss will stare back at us. And I think that there is something to be said about that, because Bigfoot represents so much to so many different people. But to me, it represented that unfettered wildness, that undomestication, that chaos of the natural world. And as much as we're drawn to that world, it is also very frightening, because we really don't have the wherewithal or the capabilities to survive in that world for very long. And it was just something that's always been with me. And I remember I went to the University of Pittsburgh, and I was taking an anthropology class my very first year of school there. And it was an anthropology 101 class. And our textbook was, I believe it was called Physical Anthropology and Archaeology. And we were reading a chapter in there about the possibilities of the Gigantopithecus surviving into historical times. And one of the authors of the book, who was an esteemed professor, stated in the book, is it possible that the legends we have of the Yeti may have stemmed from sightings of a remnant population of Gigantopithecus that survived up into the very early historic times? And that was in school, from a real textbook, that cost me like $80 at the bookstore. So this was something that was vetted and reviewed. And to tell you the truth, it was like I was sitting at my desk, and this hairy creature that I've been looking for all my life now entered the classroom and sat down beside me, and was like, now what do you do with me? So we often take academics out of our search for the unexplained or the cryptozoological, simply because they tend not to fit any kind of scientific paradigm. But I think whenever you look deeper into this mystery, we see that these are creatures that have a biomechanics, and not only a biomechanics, but they have to operate within our environment, within our world, in very specific ways, like all nature does, And once we know those kind of things, it might be easier to kind of find our quarry. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more melodramatic and a little bit more problematic as well, too, is that the more I investigate, the more I'm considering that what we are in pursuit of is not actually a flesh and blood animal, but may indeed be something that has no reference at all in our physics as we know them. And we might be dealing with something that in no uncertain circumstances as being interdimensional, something that could, live within our world, exist within our world, but is not from our world. And I think the more you talk to people, and the more witnesses that I speak to, the more it seems as if that is what we're dealing with. I have heard things out in the woods that I really can't explain, howls and things. Again, this is anecdotal. But the one thing, and I did talk about this on the show a few years ago. So as a researcher, I found this event to be very startling. It was about 4 years ago, and we had a pretty bad snowfall. And there was no school that day, and I have 5 kids, so it was going to be a pretty hectic day for the Murphy family. So I decided that I was going to go outside and see what it was like, and it was just getting dawn. So I opened up the door, and the brush of new fallen snow was out there, and the first light of the morning was starting to glisten across the snow, and it was completely unmarked. It was untouched. Nobody had been outside. And then I noticed in my yard these impressions. I got close to them, and I found out that these were not just impressions, but they were barefoot impressions, and they were about the size of a dollar bill. I'd taken plenty of pictures of them, and I thought this is extremely unusual because I am an investigator of Bigfoot and the ilk, and now there's these tracks that are in my yard. So there's woods surrounding my place, so I assumed that the tracks had come from the woods. So I started to kind of follow them backwards, and lo and behold, the tracks did not emanate from the woods. They simply began out of nowhere in the middle of my yard. and they began kind of tenuously as well too. It was a right track, and then another right track, and then a left and right track, and then it picked up the cadence of a regular footfalls. But whatever happened in my yard that night several years ago, before dawn, I really don't know. But it seemed as something either took a while to become wholly physical, or if it stepped out of something. That's the only way I can describe it, because the tracks were as such that they began slowly until they became a full set of tracks, and then they went to my downstairs window and apparently looked into my downstairs window, and then went over the hill back to the woods. But instead of vanishing in the woods, they again vanish into nothing. So this trackway, which was probably maybe 30 yards, all very, these weren't large tracks. These were about the size of a dollar bill, all barefoot tracks, seemingly come out of nothing, and then come look into my home as if I, the investigator, was being investigated. And that really kind of made me think about what might be going on here. I mean, do these creatures know about us? And do they know what our intentions are? I don't know. I can't speak conclusively, but all that I can say is this one event that I had made me think that we're dealing with something that is far more, I guess, amazing than would be just a simple flesh and blood creature.
Yeah, and you went right into where I was going to take you with that. Yeah, so some people feel like they're flesh and blood. They live here somewhere in the woods. Some people take the interdimensional aspect, which I lean more towards, only because people say they disappear right in front of their eyes, and they do this sort of cloaking thing. And then the footsteps that you mentioned that come out of nowhere, that definitely obviously leans into a interdimensional aspect. So, I don't know if you have any background with extraterrestrials or have researched any of that, but they show some of the same traits. It seems like that the Bigfoot do when the interdimensional aspect. I've always wondered if there were a set of glasses you could put on that would allow you to peek into that other dimension. Would you see things running around everywhere? You know what I mean? Like, is there a whole nother world where these things exist that is right outside of our own vision? What do you think about that? And like, what other things kind of points to interdimensional for you?
Right. So I love the analogy that you had there, because that's very appropriate. We went back to the Stone Age. Not the Stone Age, the Middle Ages. There was a stone that people would look for called a hag stone or an adder stone, and it was a stone that was naturally worn to have a hole in it, so you would like peer through it like a looking out through a door hole, a peephole in a door, and it was believed that if you held that up to your eye, it would enable you to see the realm of the fairy or the other world. What you said is very appropriate. Our human eyesight, our human hearing, our smell, everything is so extremely limited. We can only grasp a small portion of the spectrums that are out there. So it's very possible that what's going on, even while you and I are having this conversation, is that there is a whole other world operating right around us as well that we simply cannot see, and possibly they cannot see us either. It's almost like the layers of an onion. We might be the top layer, but there's another layer, and it's very, very thin. And that being said, if we could go on that theory for a little bit, then we can see that there might be tears in that onion from time to time, and things can slip into our world and vice versa. We can slip into that world. That would then explain ghostly encounters. That would explain, Bigfoot, and in some ways even explain extraterrestrials as well too. Instead of these entities coming from billions of light years away and traveling through wormholes and things like that, is it possible that they are from this very world in which we inhabit, but we just simply cannot recognize them as being from here. So they seem very strange and alien to us.
Yeah, and then I guess it just, if that ends up being the case, it's like, how do you, would there ever be a point that we could get to that would allow us to confirm that? You know what I mean? Because if it's in a dimension we're unable to see, the faculties that we have now just won't allow us to do it. So is there something that we may develop down the line that allows us to peer in to these other dimensions? Because I figure if it doesn't, then this may be something that we're chasing for a long time.
Right. Okay. See, so again, I'm very flattered to be on the show. You're a very intelligent person, so I'm really enjoying myself here. So the
Right.
point that you made was very, very appropriate. What can we do in order to see into that world or can have access to that world? And I think that we can do a few things, and we probably are doing a few things. I heard a story several years ago about a gentleman that had his own Tesla coil in his house. I mean, nothing, spectacular. People can put these things together if they have the know-how. But he talked about firing this thing up one time, and he had it up in his attic. He fired it up, and then he went downstairs, and then he heard something walking around in his attic after he went downstairs, as if that facilitated the opening of a door into another world. And what makes this story even more strange is that the next day he had a knock on the door, and he claims that he was paid a visit by some government officials that confiscated his Tesla coil. Now, if we think about the things that the military are doing, we think about CERN, for instance, there's a lot of things that are going on out there that maybe shouldn't be going on. Accelerating atoms into each other probably is not the best thing that we as human beings can do, yet we still do it nonetheless. And is that opening portal doors? Is that the key? Is this kind of energy that we're putting out there and this kind of supplantation of what is supposed to be going on, and then we as human beings are kind of delving into things that we shouldn't be? Is this kind of experimentation the key that is now unlocking doors that used to be closed?
Yeah, I've heard that as well. I've heard that before as well. Like a tear in the fabric, right?
Mhm.
And things that are able to just step in and step out because of that. And then I guess, maybe that'd be something that we as humans might be able to do at some point down the line. Maybe we could take advantage of that. Not that we would want to or should want to, because the type of things that appear to be stepping in from this other dimension are probably things that we don't really want to deal with. But that makes a lot of sense. And also with the extraterrestrial part as well. What do you, do you feel, would you say that because of this and these encounters that a lot of people have, that there may be some sort of element of danger in encountering things like this? Like, what is your outlook on Sasquatch? Some people say they're friendly, they'll help you out, they have families, they can align with us as humans. Some people say you don't want to be left alone with one of these. What is your outlook on Bigfoot? And because I have something inside of me that says, if these things are out there like that, if you can encounter these things in the woods, then this should be something that should be brought out globally, the knowledge. That way we could have signs up in the woods, just like beware of bear, beware of Sasquatch, beware of X, Y, and Z. What is your outlook on that?
Um, Part of me thinks that there is governmental knowledge of these things, and I think that we probably all agree that, there are people around that know more about this stuff than we do, right? I mean, we can look at the Sasquatch legend, and we know that there's an Army field manual that states that these things exist in California, and if you encounter them, you have to be wary of them. So I think, look, I love humanity. I love human beings so much. but that doesn't necessarily mean I want to be in a room alone with some of them. I think that whenever we're dealing with the unexplained and the unusual, I think that we're dealing with something that is so utterly unknown to us that nobody should be like out there trying to have a close encounter with any of these things. We don't know what their intentions are. And probably more worrisome is they don't know what our intentions are. So there might be a little bit of territoriality there, or whatever the case may be. And if they have had knowledge of human beings and they see how we're rather reckless, it might not be a great thing to have an encounter with these creatures.
There are some people in the field, and I think just with probably any field really, there's a group of people who simply make up stories and embellish, right? There's definitely that. What, where do you stand in that? Like, there's different elements of this. So and I have no experience with this at all, is why I'm asking, but things like mind speak and some people say that they interact with Bigfoot every day, like a human would. What is your outlook on that? Is it likely? Have you heard things like that? Like, what is your outlook
Oh,
on that?
my goodness, yeah, I've spoken to people that have claimed that they've had ongoing encounters with the same family of Bigfoot since they were children. And yet there's no evidence. There's no pictures taken. There's not a clump of fur or anything like that. There's just no evidence. And you would think that if you were having, day-to-day interactions with these creatures, you would want them to be proven. I'm not saying that you would want somebody to go out there and hunt them, but you would want to say, hey, look, I just want to let you know I have the answer to this question. Here's a hair, or here's a photograph or a video, whatever. So I find it very peculiar that these people are going out there and discussing this at length, sometimes even appearing at conferences and having lectures on this without any proof whatsoever. So much of this field is a bit of P.T. Barnum. People probably get in for the right reasons, but the more you're in it, I think the more you tend to elaborate, and sometimes that's not for the best. Now, as an author and researcher, and I write about things other than the paranormal, so I have kind of a reputation that I want to I keep pretty untarnished. If I'm writing in another discipline, the last thing that I want is that there's that paranormal guy that made this stuff up. So whenever I document anything in my books, I try to make it with everybody that was there. I try to add everybody that was there and their reactions to the subject as well too. And occasionally, whenever there is something rather outlandish, I will have somebody who had also witnessed the event write their own chapter in their own words about what they had seen. I know that I did a show here with Spaced Out Radio a few years ago, and I like to read the comments because there's a lot of trolls out there. And there was one particular one that accused me of making up the stories in order to sell books. And, as much as I'm flattered that they were thinking about me in that regard, like I said, I document everything that I can in ways that there's a follow-up as well, too. So I think that for the most part, people are out there trying to get to the bottom of this. Whenever there's a little bit more of a gray area, is those people that show up out of nowhere and kind of start making quick bucks here and there because they have an experience. Remember now, no research, just an experience, but there's no corroborating evidence to go along with that experience.
Yeah. And it's not just in this field, it's in you find with UFOs as well.
Exactly.
And I just, there are people out there on the skeptical side that like to call people out like that, that embellish. And I think that's okay to do, you know what I mean? Because the research shouldn't be muddied up with false claims and
Right.
false accounts. And the goal should be, I would think, with any researcher, should be to get to an answer, or to be able to lay it all out and say, hey, this is what it is with my research, this is what it is. But there's some people that do research in both fields, all fields, and they just you know they just come back with stories rather than you know things that could really move the conversation forward, right? You just have the same conversation over and over again, but where does that move us in this conversation? Like, what more do we know now, and how can we apply that to figuring out what this is? Because it's a serious thing. Going back to, if these things are out there, I would rather have you figuring out what these things are and trying to get an answer to this, instead of just telling me a story, because I like to go in the woods occasionally, right? So, I would like that sense of security, or at least have the knowledge to know whether or not I want to go into the woods or not. Like, hey, I'd rather not, because these things are there, and and that's just the way I feel about it. And it's kind of, being in this field is sort of tough to say things like what we're saying right now, because some people get offended. But then when I look at it, I'm like, okay, well, maybe those people that get offended are the ones actually embellishing and aren't in it for the reasons that we're talking about. So wanted to tackle that with you.
I think you've hit the nail on the head on so many different points right there. A lot of people that feel as if they are being, they need to somehow be confrontational, or, even abusive. There's a lot of people out there like that, because they have nothing to fall back on, right? This is all very subjective. So a lot of people, whenever they come into this field, they will write books about nothing than encounters. So you'll pick up a book that's, maybe 200 pages long, and the whole thing is nothing but a litany of encounters that have occurred. Again, it's not really pushing anything forward. Nobody is making any kind of assumptions. And I think whenever you deal with the paranormal, we have to inject a little bit of the scientific in there. So let's throw in some ideas, let's throw in some hypotheses, and let's kind of work it out and see what we can do. Because, like you had said, that moves the conversation forward. But another buzzword that's out there that you have to be afraid of, and it's happening all the time. If you look up at any conference, it will add that here, and that is the idea of the expert, right? That's a scary word, because we're dealing with things that are unknown, and some of these experts are declared experts because of their encounters. One particular gentleman who does research in this area where I live, he has been looking into the UFO phenomenon for years. And for the most part, he had been doing a very, very good job until several years ago. His claims become, quite unbelievable, to the point that now he is attesting that he is having sexual relations with one particular female alien. So whenever we get to that kind of level, I think common sense kind of takes over, and we really aren't dealing with somebody that is trying to push this subject forward or shed light on it. But, there's really kind of, making fun of it, and, making fools of us as well, too. Like, again, P.T. Barnum, there's a sucker born every minute. But I think with shows like this and intelligent forums like this, people are becoming less apt to fall for such a line.
I like that. I like that. And and to be fair, because we don't understand this, some of the stuff that may be reality ends up sounding kind of far off. But here's the thing. The way I look at it is, okay, having sex with the alien, having relations with the alien. Okay. All right. Now, how do we show that? How do we bring the evidence forward so that we can say this is a thing that's definitely going on? And so, and if it doesn't, if the intent isn't to move the conversation that way, that's how I sort of kind of vet some of the things that I'm hearing, because I want to take everyone's story as legit and credible, but you have to show the intent to want to move further than just that conversation that you're having, or whatever it is you're presenting.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, because the questions are, why would some other entity want to have physical relations with somebody from the human race? These are the questions that should be asked. Nothing like the salaciousness of just having intercourse with an alien, but there has to be reasons why. And for you just to come up and just blatantly state that is very difficult. And this is coming from a gentleman who's I think he is very close to 80. And I'm 55 years old, and I find it very difficult to get out of bed in the morning, let alone have intercourse with something from a foreign planet.
Great point. Great point. Yeah, great point. So we're getting into some good stuff. We're getting close to the end of the hour here, where we take our 5-minute break. I would like to, and we can talk more about this, but what if you could give us real quick one of the most compelling pieces of evidence you've come across in your research?
Okay. Well, actually, this is a good point. So I had my most recent book is called Lights from the Mist, and it's about phantom lights or ghost lights or spook lights, a lot of different names, fairy lights. And that was because we were filming for a documentary by Small Town Monsters, and we were looking for Bigfoot. And the evening that we were out there looking, we did not encounter any kind of Sasquatch activity. But what we did encounter were these strange lights that seemingly had a sentience to them, as if they were interacting with us. This was all caught on camera, which is another astounding thing. And if anybody wants to watch it, they could go to Small Town Monsters, and it's called Sasquatch Uncovered the Ridge, and it's called Spectral Bigfoot. And so this is one of the few things I think that we could actually have a discussion about that was actually recorded, to the point that people can decide for themselves what was going on. But that led me down a whole new rabbit hole. And now I'm thinking about the idea of, what these earth lights are, what these energies are, and can these energies themselves then manifest into these creatures that people are reported as seeing?
Yeah, you're on to something there. I've had my own activity, and we can get into that in the second hour as well. But in particular, I've had these orbs that I've caught on this Ring camera. We have a side house, and these things are just floating around the room, like intelligently moving around the room. And my theory is, I've seen these in other videos, and my theory is, one of the theories is potentially it's one of these things that can manifest into something real. And that's the thing that scares me about it, because and my girl, she's the one that caught them and saw them, showed them to me, and I'm telling her, I'm like, some people say these things can potentially manifest into physical living things right in front of you. And I wonder that. And then I also wonder if it may be, a way of almost like a looking device, like a probe, like a drone or something where it can see through it, and it's kind of just examining the space that it's in. You know what I mean? Like in that form. So I don't know. I've been throwing around a lot of ideas, but we can get into that in a minute. Right now, we're going to go ahead and take a pause for the cause, as we go ahead and get ready to jump into our first break of the night right here with the cryptid guru, Ronald Murphy. You guys don't go anywhere. Stay right where you're at.
Conversations that move the needle.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour. Oh, not after hour. I'm sorry. Hour number 2. I'm filling in for Dave Scott tonight. Hour number 2. As we go ahead and get ready to get back into the conversation with the cryptid guru, Ronald Murphy. And we're getting into some awesome conversation. But first, I want to talk to the space travelers out there. Since you're already a space traveler, consider taking the next step and join the club. That's right. You can join the Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers Club for as little as $5 by joining our Patreon. We'd appreciate it if you do that. Once again, we're back, and I want to thank Deb from Sacramento. I missed this super chat, but I definitely thank you for your support of Spaced Out Radio, saying Dave and crew playing naked hide and seek in the woods. I don't know. You'll have to ask him when he comes back. But with that being said, getting back into this run, so what would you say would be some of the misconceptions that people may have about Sasquatch, just from your research?
Well, I think whenever I look at the legend of Sasquatch, you have to go back as far as you possibly can, and that inevitably is going to start off with here in America, especially with the First Nations and Native American folk regarding how they feel about Sasquatch. And depending upon where you're at within the North America, you could find something that's very spiritual, something that straddles the line between the mundane and the miraculous. And I think the biggest takeaway with this is, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that we have appropriated the idea of Bigfoot from other cultures that see it as something far greater than we have kind of pigeonholed it to be. Right now we kind of domesticated Bigfoot, and now he sells us pizza or snow shovels or sausage links or what have you. But to the Native American folk, he was and still is something of reverence. He is that conduit between our world and the other world. So I think what we have done, the biggest misconception that we have done, is seeing Bigfoot simply as a viable commodity in which to sell things through, because it's much, much more than that.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And you actually went into something else I was going to talk about, which is the indigenous people, the folklore, and how they, to me, my feeling is they have a lot of the answers to all this stuff. It's been in their folklore since the beginning of time. And us as domesticated, the societies that we live in now, which are so far removed from our native past, I feel like that's something that we need to reconnect with. And I feel like anyone in this field that's doing research on any of these things should have that in mind, that there is that indigenous connection, and maybe that's where you may want to kind of direct some of your focus to try to answer some of the questions that we have about the phenomena. Because if you we have a guy who comes on our show, Travis Mustu's First Nations Cree Nation up in Canada, and it's always great to get his input and perspective because he's so connected to those stories. And I think if we all at some point take a moment to try to reconnect with that, or at least sit down and try to understand that part of it, then it makes a lot more sense. And I just think they really have a lot of the answers that we're looking for. So
I agree. And whether we're talking about Dogman, or we're talking about Little People, or Bigfoot, or Thunderbird, all of these images, all of these archetypes have their genesis in Aboriginal cultures, right? And I think that we need to look at the where these seeds were planted in order to know and understand what has come to fruition in the 21st century.
Right. And what type of when you go into the field, What type of tools do you take with you? What do you use for your research? Trail
Well,
cam.
yeah, you know what? All the above. I'm not a very technologically advanced person, but I've tried to convince myself that I will get to that point at some time. But if anything is too technical, then of course I use my children because they know all the kind of stuff and I do not. But what my main source is a little notebook that I got from Walmart and a pen. I think it's observation and writing down notes and your thoughts and your intuition about what's going on. I also take a roll of Scotch tape with me as well too. So if I ever uncover some sort of unusual looking hair or anything, I can tape it right into my notebook. I know that wouldn't preserve DNA or anything like that, but it's just a way of compounding and collecting everything that I go out to. If I see any kind of unusual plants, I will get a leaf and put that in there as well too, just to know what all was in the environment, because I think that's very important to do. Also, a camera. I think that everybody should have a camera as well too, because if we're going to be documenting evidence, everybody wants to see something.
Receipts. That's my thing for
Gotta have receipts.
2024. That, and I keep saying that to people, and I know, some people will have a one-off experience where they weren't able to grab their camera in the moment. They were in a state of shock, and I can get that, and I can understand that. But I'm under the belief that if there's going to be multiple encounters, that you gotta, one of these times you gotta get something. You gotta bring something back. You know what I mean?
Nothing blurry. Yeah, nothing. If somebody's having multiple encounters, then they need to bring us back something that's not blurry and is, without a doubt, unequivocally that in which they are claiming to see.
Yeah. So, do you get into Dogman any?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I wrote a book called On Dogman, Tracking the Werewolf Through History. It's one of those subjects that really has kind of sparked my attention, and I first came across it in 1999. It was during a Bigfoot expedition, and I was with Eric Altman and the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society in Western Pennsylvania. And we were on an expedition with a gentleman who recently passed away named Sam Sherry. Now, back in 1984, he claims to have had a very unusual Bigfoot encounter, which included mind speak and everything else. And instead of wanting to go around labeled as somebody that was a lunatic, he spent the rest of his life trying to prove that these creatures are out there by trying to gather DNA in various ways. One of them by putting food items in surrounded by barbed wire, hoping that it would catch, hair or blood or whatever. And unfortunately, he never was able to collect any evidence. But it was an interesting thing nonetheless. But he had been studying this creature, like I said, since '84. So by 1999, he'd already been doing this for quite some time. And he said in all of his field research, he has encountered two types of Bigfoot. Now, the first one, he said, was the big lumbering forest giant. He said, this is what you think of whenever you think of Bigfoot. And he claimed that they were very gentle. They were, the stewards of the forest. They took care of animals, occasionally would take care of human beings if they were lost. But it was the quintessential Harry and the Hendersons type of Bigfoot. And then he said, but there was another Bigfoot out there as well, too. And I had never heard this story before. And he said they were much thinner than this other Bigfoot. And he said that they had a pronounced snout. Their jaws protruded, and he claims they hunted in packs. And I was thinking, later on, whenever Dogman became part of the vernacular, I was thinking that's what he was describing to me. Of course, because he had so many amazing encounters, that requires amazing proof as well. So usually everything that he told me, I looked at very skeptically, but that was the first time I'd ever heard this before about there being another type of creature out there in the woods. And now, 25 years later or 24 years later now since that initial talk that I've had with him. Now Dogman is becoming, probably a thing that's even bigger than Bigfoot now. And maybe he was indeed describing a very early encounter with what we would call Dogman now.
Yeah, with Dogman, that's one of the new things I'm kind of getting into, because as I've said before, it's an onion and it's many layers. And the part of the onion I'm at now is Bigfoot and Sasquatch. So I'm realizing that all these other things are real based on experience. And so it opens me up to now these other things definitely being possibilities. They had the George Knapp, I forget who he wrote the book with, Secrets of the Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, right.
And so they talked in that book about something that would sound ridiculous on the face of it, which was a canine, upright walking canine with a trench coat smoking a cigarette, right? So it sounds wild. But, when I start thinking about it, I'm like, okay, well, why would someone just say that, right? Like, what would be the purpose of someone saying they could just say they saw an upright walking canine? Why all the extra details? What do you think Dogman is? Do you think it's also interdimensional like Sasquatch, or what do you feel about Dogman?
Well, I think that society at large knows more about Dogman than we're letting on. Whenever we look at the ancient Egyptian culture, we have Anubis, which is quintessentially the Dogman. You see him sometimes even portrayed in art without a mask or without the headpiece on. So what we are supposed to believe in the guise of Anubis is something that is supposed to be able to take on the shape or the form of, a dog or a wolf or what have you. So we have a knowledge, already within our collective unconscious that these things can happen. And we have proliferation of movies. So we have, from the 1940s, we have the Lon Chaney Wolfman as well, too. Yeah. But essentially, what are they? So you talked about seeing, a Dogman wearing a trench coat. Somebody had reported that. One of the very earliest reports I ever was able to uncover was up in Michigan, back up in the big forest of Michigan back in the late 1800s. And somebody claims that they were treed by these wolves that walked upright. And one of the pieces of evidence that the person had gave was that one of these creatures went into a side pocket that it had to get a pinch of snuff. So these are very unusual kind of occurrences. So I think that what we're to make of this is this, that what the witnesses had testified to, that they saw something that greatly resembled a wolf, but had the qualities of a human being. And I think these kind of details are kind of sprinkled in there to kind of accentuate the point that these creatures were not completely dogs. They were also acting like human beings in a way as well. So because the word werewolf, the W-E-R, is actually a medieval term that means intelligence. So man, it means man. So we have a man wolf out there, the wolf man. And the reason why that is because it's acting with something other than just instinct. There is intelligence going on there as well, too. And I think that is the way for somebody to get their point across, that this is something that was more closely related to a man than just some sort of forest beast.
Yeah, Dogman. Oh, I hear so many stories about it. Most of the ones, well, all the ones that I hear are not good stories.
Right.
They say you want to meet one.
That's what I was going to say. So an hour ago, you said about, meeting Bigfoot out in the woods, right? And there might be some listeners out there that would have no problem with a close encounter to a Bigfoot. But I don't think that anybody would ever say, you know what? I wish I had a close encounter with one of those Dogman creatures.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, going back to receipts. So there, as it pertains to Bigfoot, there was, and I hope I get her name right. I know her last name is Ketchum. Maybe it's Sandra Ketchum.
Let me see here.
she is supposedly she's with like the Genome Project for
The Genome Project. That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so she had stated that she had Bigfoot DNA, and they had proved that the DNA it was Bigfoot, it was real. And do you remember that? And what do you think about that? What's your perspective on that? Yeah.
Well, I think what happens is so many people come out saying that they have the DNA, right? That they have the holy grail of proof whenever it comes to cryptozoological. But inevitably, it always comes out to be human or some sort of animal that we know. But what is going on is these so-called experts will have DNA that comes back as human, and they say, I told you so. We have the DNA of Bigfoot, and it's so closely related to the human being that, of course, the DNA is going to come back as human, right? And there is probably something to be said for that. But if you're finding an animal out there that's uncatalogued and undiscovered, and even though it's so closely related to the human, it might be very closely related to human beings, it is in no way a human being. So there will be something also different about that DNA. But that happens a lot. That happens a lot whenever people are investigating Dogman or Bigfoot or whatever. They will get DNA, and any which way it comes back, they will always say, we told you so. Years ago, somebody had a Bigfoot, and they claimed to have sent the DNA off for testing, and it came back as possum DNA. And the person who discovered this so-called dead Bigfoot and collected the DNA said, I got you there, exactly, because the Bigfoot's diet consists mainly of possum. So no matter what you do, you're always going to be right in some way. And you talked earlier, like I said, about an hour ago, about pushing this research forward. And this does nothing but really kind of hamper us and hinders us, because we need something to present on a scientific level so that we are going to be accepted by the scientific community. Right now, we are marginal at best. Science very rarely takes anything that the Bigfoot community or the cryptozoological community says. Anyways, besides Jeff Meldrum, very few people are going to be recognized or accepted within academia. But I think that if we start using the scientific approach and start looking at this from a very skeptical point of view, but an open mind point of view, we probably will be able to take evidence and present it at a forum or at a conference in which we could get recognition. I've said many times, I've done Dogman conferences and I've done Bigfoot conferences, and I always wonder why these conferences aren't held within within a college community, because even if you are completely skeptical to the point that you say that you're atheist concerning the Bigfoot phenomenon, these things definitely do not exist. Well, I would have to tell you then, it's so part of our culture that it exists within folklore, it exists within psychology, and that in and of itself is worthy of study, but they will not, they being the academics, will not take what we do seriously. And I kind of pride myself in calling myself an academic because, I've done master work, I've done postmaster's work, and I put a lot of time into my education, a lot of time into fine tuning my skills as a researcher. And I find it rather appalling that science will not at least listen to what we have to say because they've already ruled the possibility out.
Awesome. Now I want to point something out to you guys out there. I am now looking at questions or looking for questions. So I see I've tagged one already. If you posted questions earlier and I missed them, which I probably did, go ahead and repost those, please, and put those in caps, and I'll be keeping an eye on that. So with that Genome Project, then, so that didn't really go anywhere, or there was no validity to it, or
I think it came out that there was just simply no validity to it. The DNA came back as inconclusive and more closely related to human being. It came back as this was human DNA.
Okay. And then another thing, so I see they have these Bigfoot conferences often, and I was told by a few people, I think even Dave has told me this, that within the Bigfoot research community, it seems like researchers aren't sharing data with each other.
Mhm.
Is that a thing? And
Oh my goodness gracious. So much infighting, my friend, that is involved in the community to the point that I thought that I was going to actually leave and just retire and leave this whole thing behind. People who I thought were my dear friends, people who I've had stay at my house, people that I've, broke bread with, and I thought they were my friends. At the end of the day, I found out that they were simply using me for information. There was things that I've had written before but never published that people have taken and developed it on their own. People are jockeying for position because they want to get ahead in media, right? The big thing is people want to be on television, and they want that 15 minutes of fame. And if they have to ride on the back of Bigfoot's coattails, they will certainly do that. The problem is very few people have any um, research or have not compiled enough information to appear on television. So they have to start kind of leeching on to other people, hoping that somebody will also notice them. It's a sad commentary on the state of affairs. But with the History Channel and the Travel Channel and all these things, and watching ghost hunters and all these things,
yeah.
people are going out there and basically cosplaying their researchers, and then make sure they have all their clothes on together, right? That they look perfect. They have the hat like I'm wearing, and the only reason I'm wearing this hat is because I have male pattern baldness, so that's what covers it up. But they look perfect. They look like they know what they're talking about. And sometimes these television shows simply want a talking head, and that's it, and that's fine. But there's researchers out there who call them researchers, but really aren't. But they want to appear on television, so they'll do anything they can to have that moment of fame.
Yeah, and it just hurts the field. It just
Oh my goodness.
the people who look from the outside, and when they cast judgment on the entire field, those are the people that they see. Those are the visible people who are obviously doing this for fame and for money, and not really trying to invest anything into the actual research. And it just paints a bad picture for everyone else, for the serious ones who are really trying to progress the narrative and move the needle forward. And I just hate that. And I wish there was a way to kind of separate the real from the fake. I guess just the easiest way to say it.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the WWF. It's really entertaining, but there's really no substance to it, right? I mean, these people are going out there. Look, the people are making a tremendous living doing this as well too, going out into the woods and looking for creatures and stumbling upon conspiracy theories and everything else out there. This is great soap opera. And a lot of people find it appealing, and some people probably even believe it. But at the end of the day, as you said, no needle is being moved. Nobody is getting any answers. We are watching a sideshow, and we're enjoying it, and we're paying for it, but we're not realizing that there's no substance to it whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah. The way I look at it is, I call it just a lot of spooky stories,
That's right.
a lot of campfire stories, designed to entertain the masses. You know what I
That's right.
mean? And once the story is over, so you move on and think nothing else of it. And it's just I'm actively trying to figure out a way to separate the two. And that's why I said earlier, that's why I don't mind when skeptics scrutinize and put those people through the ringer when it comes to validation of your story. Because
Right.
you can't validate the things that you're saying, so maybe step aside and let the person that has the real research and evidence step forward and present that, because there is a real, I mean, it's a serious subject, and it should be looked at as that. You know, people on the
Right.
outside look at this and they snicker and they laugh, and it's because of those people. But there's a lot of serious research and time in being invested into figuring this out. So I don't know how. Maybe one day we come together and figure out how to make that happen. But there definitely has to be at some point some sort of separation, or the ones doing the serious research and with the data and the receipts need to be the ones on the at the forefront on these shows, so they're not these hunting for Bigfoot, the
Right.
type of shows that you just described with characters essentially, on the screen. We need people like yourself, and there's some other Bigfoot researchers I know that would be good for that as well. We need you guys up there, presenting your evidence and talking intelligently on the subject.
Right. Well, I do appreciate that. Now, how long have you been doing podcasts now? You're a seasoned veteran by this point, correct?
I've been this almost 2 years.
There you go. So, have you ever had anybody on your show that you start asking them questions and they really don't know where to go with those questions? Yeah,
Yes.
so you immediately know then, that's kind of like, separating the chaff from the wheat, right? I mean, you know pretty quickly if this is just a talking head or not. Now, these people tend not to do question and answer type of segments because they are afraid of being exposed, right? They
Yes.
look good on camera, they have great stories, but whenever it comes to offering something, then they start becoming tongue-tied and fumbling around and things. So I think that really says a lot too. I love to do these kind of shows because I love to talk to people, and I hope some of your listeners have some great questions for the next half hour, because, that's how we learn and that's how we share. But there's a lot of people out there that simply don't want bother with that because that will kind of shed light on these dark areas that they don't want to go to, or they don't want to be exposed.
You are absolutely right, and I'll tell you, just that you are absolutely right on that. And I find what it is; those ones are they give short answers. They can't really elaborate. They don't really speak from the heart about it. It's like canned responses, sort of thing. So, and that's exactly the type that you're talking about. But that me specifically, when I'm booking for the weekend show, I search for people. I do research on the person, and I have to have that feeling for that person based on conversations that they have, if they're really being true about the things they're saying, and will this conversation move the needle. So just meeting you, like, this is pre-booked by Dave, but I having the conversation with you, I see that you are, fully invested into it, and you're on the right side of it, right? So I love that, and hopefully we can definitely do this again.
Oh,
Some other time.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I did have something here. I know we at least got one question so far, and Katie Page was asking, why do you think Bigfoot and ETs favor elk?
Oh, right. Wow. Yeah, that's a good question. So, there are occasionally reports of elk mutilation as well too. But of course, we have a lot of cattle mutilation, and we don't see Bigfoot very often, doing anything with cattle. But elk. So let's talk about this for a second. I think it's a very large prey animal, number one, and if something like a Bigfoot was able to take down an elk, it would satisfy its calorie intake for quite some period of time. But it seems to even be more than that. There is a connection with elk and people because a lot of people do farm elk as well too. But I'm going to have to probably turn that over to you whenever it comes to mutilations or predation. In my opinion, I think it's just because it's a big prey animal, and sometimes you can find elk, even within a fenced area, which provides even easier pickings than anything else. That's just my opinion. What about you, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. It goes over even to extraterrestrial cattle mutilations. I just feel like if they are, carbon based, if they are in any way like us, in any, they're bipedal, it's likely that they may indulge in meat as well. And so it's probably as simple as that. And like I said, large prey animal, large source of meat. If I was out hunting and needed to feed myself, and I would probably target an animal just like that as well. So it just makes sense.
Absolutely.
Bears,
Absolutely.
bears target them as well. Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense, and that's the other thing. I think common sense answers a lot of these questions. You really don't have to be schooled in order to get the answers to these questions. We were given common sense, and I think common sense answers a lot of these questions. So,
Yes, indeed.
um, Cosmic Joe Chronicles, do most Bigfoot prefer meat, or are they vegans in your opinion?
Oh, right. That's a good question as well, too. So there are reports, indeed, of Bigfoot hunting. Again, as we talked about earlier, there are people who claim that they are experts on the hunting patterns of Bigfoot, yet they have no evidence to show that. But one of the claims is that, there will be some Sasquatch, part of this clan or group that they have, that will push the animal towards another Sasquatch that's waiting in cover or what have you. And it's been described by these so-called experts that the Bigfoot will come out and hit the back leg of the deer to break the leg so the animal cannot get away, and grab the animal by the head and then break its neck. So this is what a lot of people believe that happens. There was a Russian scientist whose name escapes me right now, but he claimed that he had talked to enough witnesses that he is reliably sure that this is how Bigfoot hunts. And also, you also have people reporting seeing Bigfoot in coastal areas, feeding on clams as well too. But you also have a lot of reports of Native Americans about seeing Bigfoot eating berries, blueberries, blackberries, and such. So all these kind of anecdotal stories lead me to the opinion that if Bigfoot is indeed a flesh and blood animal, it is probably opportunistic. It will probably eat whatever it comes across. It may even scavenge. So people reported these things breaking into, meat houses, into places where their fish was being smoked, but also going through garbage cans, raiding crops. Here in Western Pennsylvania, there's stories of Bigfoot visiting the local animal shelter to prey on dogs as well. So I think what it comes to, and you said again about common sense, I think that what we have to look at is that this animal, a big animal like that, needs a lot of calories, and it's going to get these calories in any which way that it can. And if meat is available, I'm quite sure that it would go for meat. But if it's going to be a vegetarian basis in a particular environment, then that's the way it would do it.
All right, great answer. And Katie Page is asking, why do Bigfoot braid horsehair?
So let me ask you: have you ever heard this story before, my friend?
I've heard of people say that they've had horsehair braided. I don't know where I fall with that. What do you think about it?
So I am a big believer and researcher into the realm of the fairy, right? And if we look at folklore from the British Isles, and sometimes even in France as well too, mainland Europe, you see that certain fairies are tied to this notion of braiding horsehair. Okay, for whatever reason, that has now been allocated to Bigfoot doing the same thing, which I will have to bring up this quickly here within the with the remaining minutes that we have. Is it possible that our very own Bigfoot is also a fairy? Now let me go through this. So fairies are known to be able to change their shapes, to appear and disappear at will. Some places in the Pacific Northwest, it's believed that if a Bigfoot offers you food, you shouldn't take it because you would then become part of his world. And that's something that's also a hallmark of fairy lore in Europe as well, too. So we might be missing the boat on this as well. So is Bigfoot, this 12-foot tall bipedal hair-covered creature of Native American myth and folklore, is it possible that it serves the same function as the fairy does in Europe? And I say yes, I most certainly do. It straddles two worlds. It belongs to this world, but it also has its origin in the other world as well. It can show itself to you. It can disappear at will. They've been known to shapeshift, or, of course, what they would have called in the Middle Ages would be glamour in order to hide its true form. So people could talk about cloaking. So as a researcher and comparing different types of folklore, it seems that we have a connection there. And braiding the horsehair is just one of those, just one of those things that pop up. But yeah, I'm still working that particular angle that what we call Bigfoot may indeed belong to the realm of the Fae. And if it belongs to the realm of the Fae, then it must almost, necessarily belong to another dimension.
Wow. Yeah, I've never heard that. That is new for me. So I'm definitely glad you brought that up. I'll be looking into that as well. And Sierra's not asking the question, she's making a statement saying some indigenous cultures believe that if you can see Sasquatch, you are low vibe because Sasquatch protect women and children.
Yeah. So the idea of frequency comes into play as well, too. And we touched on a little bit when we were talking about the woods. I am a firm believer that nature, creation, we should say, I suppose, has a frequency. It's that steady frequency that's been there since the very beginning. Now, we have been part of that frequency because we're part of this earth. But for whatever reasons, we've decided as a human race to step out of that frequency, right? It was essential that we belonged to the natural rhythm and flow of this earth when we were hunter-gatherers, when we were agriculture, because we depended upon the earth to give us life. Nowadays, we go to the grocery store. Nowadays, things have changed. Earth is now an ancillary element in our life, even though it keeps us alive. It's still something that we don't think about every day. But I think whenever we talk about the idea of the before time, before we were locked up in houses and before we had electric lights, we were part of that rhythm. And maybe we were part of that rhythm to the point that we could see things like Bigfoot, and we could see all these things that we call cryptozoological now, these hidden animals. But maybe at one time, because we were so in tune with the earth, we knew about these things. And now that we stepped out of that rhythm, now they've become monsters rather than just other passengers on this planet with us.
I like that. And you think like I think as well, because I definitely have said before that we as human beings are totally disconnected from nature and the natural process, our natural spot within nature. We are domesticated almost to a point to where we don't know how to reconnect with nature. But that's where the natives come in, because they are still connected with nature and they're rooted in that. And that's why is the reason why I say that, and the reason why I feel like we need to kind of go back to that. But I had another one here from Sierra. She actually had a question, and she asked, do you believe that only impure people can see Sasquatch?
Impure people. Wow, that's something. So I would surmise from the question that being impure is some sort of sinful nature, and can we then say that seeing Sasquatch is some sort of demonic type of element, and you have to be in a sinful state in order to see that? Because I don't see Bigfoot as either good or evil. I don't think that we have that kind of thing. I think that when we start calling things good and evil, we are subjectively casting these things in our image rather than what they are at face value, which was just, the unexplained. I don't think that you have to be impure to see them. I don't think you have to be pure to see them, but something is telling me something, in some part of my intuition tells me that in order to see these things, there almost has to be an unwritten agreement between the viewer and that which is being experienced. Excuse me. For instance, almost like when we talk about frequencies, there's almost like a circuit, and that circuit is closed off. And in order to see these things, you have to flip a switch and allow that circuit then to continue. And I think that you have to agree to that, and the creature has to agree to that as well too. Now, I'm not talking about something so ridiculous that you have to talk about it and say, hey, this is what's going on. But you have to go in there with a mindset that the possibility exists. Mm-hmm. And if you go in there with the idea that the possibility exists, then these things may be more apt to show themselves to you.
Yeah, great answer. This is one that that is a good one that I would like to know as well. Is Bigfoot responsible for most, if not all, missing 411s in your opinion?
That's a great question. So, as much as I've studied, like Land Between the Lakes, which is supposed to be a hotspot for not only dogman sightings, but for actual killings there of human beings by dogmen, and looking at all these missing 411 reports across the United States and Canada, I'm at the theory that there is, in a lot of these cases, something that is entering the scene and doing harm to people. Okay, what that something is still kind of out there. Is it possible that we have, serial killers, because people can do very heinous things? Possibly. But when we're talking about being in the middle of nowhere, where other people shouldn't even be treading, and somebody disappears or their gear is found, something acted upon that particular scene. And I'm not going to, denigrate Bigfoot and say that it's a murder or anything like that. But I will say this, that I do believe that many people who have went missing around the world have encountered something that we would call unexplained, and that led to their disappearance. That's about all I could really come up with. I have to equivocate a little bit here, because I'm not sure if it's Bigfoot, or I'm not sure if it's dogman or aliens or what have you. But I am convinced that a certain ratio of these people who have went missing have encountered something that we could not explain.
Definitely, I agree with you on that. And I think it's a little bit of all that, aliens and Bigfoot, and wherever maybe they take them into that alternate dimension, or who knows. But it's shocked me that, and I thought the number was just wrong, but I read it again, and it said in the United States, I'm pretty sure this is accurate. It's in the United States alone, like 600,000 people come up missing every year. I was like, that is an insanely large number. And then when we try to break it down into, okay, serial killers, maybe a certain percentage, but there's still so many left over that have no explanation at all. You go through wild animal predators and you mark those off, but you're still left with a huge chunk that just would have no explanation. And it's like, that's kind of scary at the same time. Which goes back to why this research is so important, and why we need to be able to validate that, yes, these things are here. Because I would think that half of those people that decided to go into the forest that day, if there was signs that said beware of Sasquatch, dogman, and extraterrestrials, how many of those people decide not to go? And we don't have the knowledge to be able to make those decisions for our own livelihood. And that's just one thing that bothers me. We have another question here. Katie Page says, do you think Bigfoot are in service to ETs?
So, especially here in Western Pennsylvania back in the 1970s, there was a lot of sightings of a Bigfoot in conjunction with UFOs to the point that it seemed as if there was a connection. I have seen, we talked about those ghost lights and these orbs in areas that Bigfoot is often reported to be in. So I think there's a connection between Bigfoot and unknown aerial phenomenon, whether they be ETs or what have you. But again, like we had talked about before, I'm also thinking that Bigfoot belongs to a world other than our world. And as you said before, my friend, that these lights could act as an energy or a vehicle or a doorway to another world. I think there's so many things that are going on here. There's such a gray area with these things that we really do not know what we're dealing with. So is Bigfoot an extraterrestrial? I don't think it's an extraterrestrial, but could it be an ultra-terrestrial? I think that's closer to the point. I think when we talk about Bigfoot, we talk about ETs and things that we can't explain. It may very well be possible that they are part of this world. It's just an unrecognized part of this world.
Yeah, definitely. Agreed. And Simon the Likeable wants to know, has Ronald investigated Yetis, Yowies, etc. in other countries also?
Right. So awesome. So again, besides my Dogman book, I also wrote on Wildman tracking Bigfoot through history, and I talk about that as well too. So when we talk about archetypes, we talk about reoccurring themes that are pretty consistent across space and time, and the Wildman imagery is one of those themes. So we could go to Asia 2,000 years ago, or we go to the Pacific Northwest, a day ago, and show them a picture, and they would understand that this was a wild man, right? So we know that these things exist within cultures, at least within their mythology, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the question is this mythology based upon reality? And I think, again, yes, absolutely, that's what we're dealing with. And people share this commonality because we would go back far enough back in time that we were sharing this world with these creatures that made a direct impact on who we are. It kind of shaped us who we are. We might have forgot about them, but we still recall them in our nightmares, or we still remember them from a very instinctual manner. Whenever it gets dark outside and we hear a stick break, it takes us back to when we were still out there living in the woods, and the only protection we had was that small glow from a campfire. I think that we still understand that these things are out there. So the Yowie, that's part of the Aboriginal mythology there. I talked to Dr. Carl Schuker about this. And he suggested, is it possible that in Australia there was a time when evolution tried to put a marsupial ape out there, and that it was what was mistaken for the Yowie? That's an extreme possibility, sure, because apes did arise in different areas, but again, that's all for theory and conjecture. But what I can say for sure is that all cultures around the world, whether we're talking about Oceania or North America or Africa, all have this image of the wild man as part of their ideology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And one final question here from the viewers. Want to know, what kind of beard oil do you use?
I don't know. I do use beard oil because Dave turned me on to beard oil. So he had told me about this one particular brand. So the brand that he told me about is the one that I use. And I don't remember what it was, but I think you can buy it in the shop. But it works wonders. It's manageable. And if you were able to reach through here and touch my beard, you would feel how unbelievably soft it is.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome plug there too. Yeah, Dave does promote the beard oil, and I believe you can find it at the SOR store.
That's where I got mine. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I got a question for you. Patterson Gimlin, real, not real, in your opinion?
Film. Yeah, so that's a hard one. So we know that Roger Patterson, was looking for this creature. He even rented a camera in order to record it. We know the day that the creature was filmed that he left for several hours and then came back, and he told Bob Gimlin that if we see anything, don't shoot it. Don't shoot it unless it charges for us. And we know that they did, of course, capture that incredible film. And what a lot of people don't know is how close they were. They were anywhere from 60 to 90 feet away. So that's from the pitching mound to home plate or from home plate to first base. Very, very close. Very, very close. And so the other thing, though, is even though all that kind of circumstantial evidence is pointing that, it was fabricated, it looks damn good, doesn't it? People claim that you could not reproduce that today, and you probably could not reproduce that today. So whatever is going on in that film is special, whether it is a photographic evidence of a Bigfoot or whether it is an elaborate hoax, and they were able to perpetrate this with the use of special effects that were far before its time. So whatever the case is, that film is special.
Okay, how about the more recent videos released like last year, the Bigfoot from the train?
Yes, yes, yes. So whenever I first saw it, I thought, how amazing this creature camouflaged itself in the environment, right? It was just walking and it kind of squatted down and it disappeared until we dig a little bit deeper and find out that, there was a sponsor for an RV company involved in it. And that's whenever, see, nowadays, with all the special effects out there, I mean, we have more special effects at our disposal in our cell phone than George Lucas did back in '77 whenever he was making Star Wars. We can do things now that great filmmakers, 40 years ago would love to be able to have. So we don't know. I mean, we cannot trust our eyes anymore. So we can have a lot of pictures and stuff like that. But again, as we talked about at the very onset of the show, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. So we're going to have the DNA. Unfortunately, that's what's going to have to happen for this to be accepted by science.
Yeah, and I like the way you look at things there. So, we need more researchers out there. I always like to applaud people who are doing things to move the conversation forward. That's the only reason why I do this. The only reason why is to have conversations that progress us somewhere. Like you leave this show, hopefully you leave with more. Hopefully it moves your needle some, and otherwise it's not worth having the conversation. So I always
You're right.
engaging with people like yourself, and definitely hope we can do this again in the near future.
Yeah, please promise me you'll have me back on. I truly enjoyed our time here, my friend. I really did, and I would love to come back on your show.
Thank you very much. And can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Sure. You can go to ron-cryptoguru.com for my website, and you can find my books on Amazon. So, and you can also reach me on social media, Ronald L. Murphy Jr., or you can email me, Ronald L. Murphy Jr., Ronald L. Murphy Jr. at yahoo.com. So, hey, I'm looking forward. Reach out and talk to me. We can have a discussion.
Yes, you heard that, guys. You know where to reach him at. So he's open to conversation. So take advantage of that, guys. That's how we move it forward. Well, Ronald, thank you so much for coming on the Cryptid Guru. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure. You have a great rest of your night, and we will be doing this again very soon.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for having me, my friend.
No problem. You take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Later. All right, guys. Yeah. Great conversation. Awesome, right? Conversations that move the needle. This is why we do this. This is why we have these conversations, not just for story time tonight, not just Hey, great story. I hope you took something away from the perspective. Maybe it gives you a different way to look at things. Maybe you heard something tonight that you hadn't heard before, right? This is what it's all about. We'll continue having these conversations, and I'm always so excited to be able to be a part of those and kind of facilitate those conversations. Once again, great to have Ronald Murphy, the cryptic guru, with us tonight. And you'll see him back here very soon. That's a fact. There's more conversations that we could have, and we will. So as you guys already know, we're going to go ahead and get ready to pause for the cause as we get ready to take another break, and come back with hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio. This is Dave. I'm filling in for Dave Scott tonight, so this isn't my setup or format. So hour number 3 will be we'll get in probably to some Phantom and Monsters and some other things. I don't know. We'll see what happens here. Appreciate it. And want Area 51. Gotta shout you out because I haven't seen you in a while. Good buddy. Saying great show. So we do appreciate you, Juan. Hope to see you back around more, buddy, because we're bringing the heat, right? Never bringing the sleep, bringing the heat. All right, you guys, I'm pause for the cause. Get ready to take a break, and we will be right back in just a moment. Don't go
Conversations
anywhere.
that move the needle.
Conversations that move the
You're
needle.
listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
So after hour number 3, as we go ahead and get ready to get into some good stuff, once again, filling in for Dave Scott. Big shoes to fill as Dave Scott is out in the woods somewhere up in British Columbia, searching for Sasquatch. I don't know what he's seen. I don't know what he's come across. We hope that he's doing okay. We hope that he does not become a Bigfoot burrito. Because that would not be good, right? Bigfoot burrito would not be good, and hopefully Dave Scott, Merle, Samantha Mowat are doing okay. I know they have some protection, so they should be good. And he did say if he saw something that he was going to contact me and let me know. I'll be the first to know. So that is awesome. So maybe we'll hear something within the next day or so, hopefully. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get ready to jump back into the show, right? As we get ready to jump into Phantom and Monsters, some stories from Lon Strickler, right? Because this is not my show. This is Dave's show, and I'm filling in. So we don't have Steve Stockton tonight, but we do have some stories from Lon Strickler that we're going to go ahead and jump into right about now. As we go ahead, Woo Factor, that's right, Tomato Man, we appreciate you. Let me go ahead and see here. Simon Weigel's asking, will Dave ever film his trips and post them somewhere? I believe they are filming. Now, I'm hoping to this, but I'm almost sure they're filming now while they're out there. So hopefully if they catch something, then it would be, we're definitely going to be able to see it. I'll tell you that at some point. Area 51 saying, ha ha ha, Bigfoot burrito. That was good. Yeah, it's good to talk about, but it's not good to be the Bigfoot burrito, right? Which is one reason why that stops me from going out there, because I'll watch from afar. I'll let Dave and everybody go ahead of me, Jax, Lee. I'll let those guys go ahead of me, and I'll kind of just hold the back, right? I'll hold the 6. I'll hold their 6. So that's what I'll do. Yeah, but we're gonna go ahead and get into some of these phantommonster.com. We got some good ones here too. We actually have with the theme of the show, right? We talked about Bigfoot, Sasquatch today. So we're gonna go ahead and get into some of these Bigfoot and Sasquatch stories, courtesy phantommonsters.com. We set the ambiance, we got the music going here to set up these stories as only we can do here. So let me go ahead and bring these up on the screen for you so that you can see what it is that we're looking at here. Oh yeah, can't you just feel it? How does it make you feel? Let me see. What is this? Is this the right one? Yes. Okay. Hunting guides. Let me bring this up here. Hunting guides observe possible Bigfoot shaking large trees in central Maine. This is courtesy of Lon Strickler, phantommonsters.com. Make sure you go to his website. He also has a YouTube channel where he goes over these stories as well. We're going to read some. Appreciate you, Lon. A group of guides in central Maine was training dogs for bear hunting season. They then observed large trees in the distance being shaken. They investigate, but don't come to any conclusion. Lon says he received this following account. Hello. So this happened about 7 or 8 years ago in the central Maine area, which is very thick woods. My dad is a Maine guide, and he isn't someone to believe in anything like this. He is a very rational and sane person and doesn't just jump to conclusions. So anyway, he and 3 other guides were out in training season for bear hunting with dogs. They were running the dogs for a good 2 hours or so, called the dogs back, and decided to try another place that was nearby to another one of his bear baits. They let the dogs go, and they start running into the woods, but still in eyesight. And all of a sudden, they start acting extremely weird. The dogs start cowering and backing up, which of course isn't normal for dogs that are trained to run big game. The group of hunters there never seen any of the dogs act like this. They seemed truly scared of what was beyond the tree line, but it got weirder. They see good-sized treetops about 100 yards or so in the distance start shaking as whatever it was making its way through the thick woods. There was cracking and snapping of trees for a good 20 to 30 seconds before you couldn't see or hear anything anymore. Of course, they thought it could have been a moose making the ruckus, but the trees were massive and were being moved, and it wouldn't explain the dogs acting the way that they did. My old man is the smartest person I've ever met when it came to the Maine woods, and has been in this particular area his whole life. A Maine guide for 40 plus years, and has never seen anything like this, not to mention the others that were there. When everything calmed down, they tied up the dogs and made their way in. There were many broken branches, and the only tracks they found were going down a semi-steep hill where it was sandy enough to get an imprint of any sort. He said it didn't look like a hoofed animal. There were huge tracks, but hard to make out a full print due to whatever it was sliding down the hill. They talked for a while about it, and one of his friends that was there had a game camera set up nearby as he was hoping to be able to catch it on film. Unfortunately, there was nothing. It must have gone in the other direction. Said note, I don't know if the guides would admit it, but it seems like Bigfoot activity in my mind. What do you think, Lon? So that was the first story, Bigfoot in the forest. Hopefully, I kind of want Dave to see one, but I kind of don't. Just depends on what the intent is, right? Getting into the next story, we have a small, pale-faced and deformed human-like being seen by hunters in northwest Wisconsin. A father and son are hunting on their cousin's land in Burnett County, Wisconsin, when they hear something near them. They observe a small, pale-faced peeking from behind a tree. Ron says he received this following account. My cousin owns land in Burnett County, Wisconsin, where there's a lot of hills and lots of deer. It's tradition for all of us to hunt on this property. My dad, cousin, and all their friends pitched in to build a hunting shack on the property and put up tree stands. We hunt on a schedule, so none of us hunt in the same area at the same time, both for our safety and in hopes of getting a deer. My dad and I took an ATV and headed up a hillside. The sun wasn't quite up yet, and we wanted to get set for sunrise. We marked which hill we were going up on the schedule inside the hunting shack. Nobody else was there yet, but we marked it anyway in case my cousin and his daughter showed up. We waited until about 9 a.m. and didn't see a thing, not even as much as a squirrel. We decided to go get some coffee to warm up and then head back out. I followed my dad down the path back to the ATV, and we stopped every so often to listen for deer. The only noises I heard were my footsteps and my dad's. About halfway to the ATV, I heard something else. It only happened when my dad and I walked. When my dad and I walked during deer hunting, I mimic his footsteps so we make less noise. I step at the same time as him. However, something behind me was making noise. It was like something was mimicking my footsteps. I spun around and peered into the trees. The sun still wasn't over the top of the hill yet, so we were in quite a bit of shade. I didn't see anything, so I continued to follow my dad down the hill. But I heard it again. This time, I turned around when we were still walking, and I saw something duck behind the tree. A pale face poked out from about 30 yards up the hill and hid behind the tree again. It poked out again, and this time stayed staring down at us. I stopped and hit my dad's shoulder. He turned and saw it too. "Get to the four-wheeler," he whispered. Didn't hesitate. I stared it down as my dad started up the ATV, and as we departed, the face's shoulder came out from behind the tree, followed by the rest of its gnarly, malformed, small human-like body. My dad hit the throttle, and we got back to the hunting shack as soon as we could. Nobody else was there, so we got in the truck and left. I haven't been in those woods since. My dad was. We got a deer this morning and acts like this never happened. I still think about it far too often. Creepy. So that was submitted to Lon Strickland. Once again, you can find these stories at phantomandmonsters.com, where a lot of people have sent in stories to Lon about their encounters out there. And this one was pretty creepy. I don't know how it makes you feel, but this one makes me feel uneasy. All right, so we're going to get into the next story here. Phantom child cries help in South Carolina cypress swamp. I'm going to go ahead and read this one as it was submitted to Lon Strickler. Let's take a look here. All right. 3 friends are staying at a private home located on an island along a cypress swamp in South Carolina. They constantly hear cries for help throughout the day and night. What could it be? Lon says, I received the following account. Hello. Maybe you can use this story. You have my permission to do so. This was back in the late 90s when 2 of my friends and I were staying at their vacation home along one of the local rivers in South Carolina. The, quote, house, think 3 small bedrooms, eating room, kitchen, and a small external bathroom, is on a privately owned island, which is not theirs, which is used for cattle grazing and is about 3 to 4 square miles in area. It is accessible by only one dirt road, which takes all of about 30 minutes to travel down, as it bends and winds through dense cypress swamps full of alligators and marsh plants. Along the road, there is one other house. Just as you get onto the island, which has long been abandoned, this old 2-story plantation-style home was supposedly abandoned when the owners, a married couple, child suffered from a fatal accident, and they couldn't stand being there anymore. Aside from my friend's house, the cattle farmer's home, and one other vacation home, the abandoned property is the only other structure. Well, my friends and I were out on the dock doing some night fishing, trying to land a shark or something to throw on the grill. But we hadn't had much luck. The river was as smooth as glass, which is really unusual because of where the dock is. The current there is usually very strong, even during the tide shift. We sat and chatted, waiting for a bite, up until about 11 p.m. Then off to our right, towards the coast, we heard a loud tone or wail, which sounded like a mix between a ship's horn and maybe a wolf howl or something similar. An important note, the island is, by car, nearly an hour from deep water access and probably more from the actual ocean. So the likelihood that the sound was a large ship is low. So anyway, we were startled by the sound, and even my friend, who had been spending his summers there since he was in diapers, had never heard the noise before and was bothered by it. So we decided to pack it up since we weren't catching anything anyway, and had nearly gotten all our equipment back to the house when my second friend heard it. Coming from down the road back towards the island access was what sounded either like a cat meowing or a child crying. We all stood in silence listening and trying to figure out what it was and where it was coming from. After listening for about 5 minutes, we decided to hop in the truck and drive down the road with the windows down so we could try to find what was making the sound. What started out sounding like a cat was made clear as we got further up the road. That was not the case. We could clearly hear a child, and it sounded like it was saying, "Help me." We drove very slowly, calling out, and we wait a few minutes and hear, "Help me" again. But always further up the road towards the swamps and the old abandoned house. We were seriously freaked out because if there was a kid out there, why would they be going away from our calls and right into the swamp? We nearly made it all the way to the abandoned house when the sound just stopped. We waited for nearly an hour and never heard it again. We marked it up as nerves and headed back to the river house, assuming it had been an animal after all, and that we were probably just imagining it saying words. After we had gotten back inside and settled in for the night, we started hearing it again. But as time passed, it came closer to us. We went out and called out again, and the sound would come closer. This went on for hours. Well, we decided we would try one more time to see if there was a kid lost or something. Again, important to note, we are miles from the next nearest people, and the noise sounded like a child. Think 4-year-old. But once we got out in the truck again, the noise stopped. It was now nearly 3 in the morning, and we had been out in the sun fishing and swimming all day, so we were all tired. After driving around a bit, calling out again with no luck, we decide to give up. We get back inside again and get into our beds. Then we heard it clear as a bell. "Help me," right outside the house. But it sounded so strange, like it was an echo, if that makes any sense. Like it was close, but far away too. None of us were brave enough to go commando and leave the house, but we went out onto the porch, which was screened in for bugs, and listened. As soon as we went out, it would stop. Go back into the beds, it would call out again, but in a different location outside the house. It circled the house, calling all night. We all slept in the living room, but to be honest, there wasn't a lot of sleeping happening. In the morning, we went out and looked for tracks around the house, as the foundation is basically sand. There wasn't a mark, no prints, animal or otherwise. And to the best of my knowledge, this never happened again to my friend or any other visitor. To this day, we don't know what we heard, but it's probably the most supernatural occurrence I've experienced. Yeah, shout out to Lon Strickler, phantommonsters.com, another awesome account. That's pretty creepy as well, right? I'm sitting there imagining this story, and there is no way in the world that I'm going to be sitting there with this phantom voice calling out, the kid crying, saying, "Help me." That's pretty scary. So make sure you guys let Lon know that we appreciate his support and we appreciate him allowing us to use these stories. We're going to get into another one. I think I have a couple more that I pinned that seem like some pretty good ones. So we're going to get into this story, which is about a massive 8 to 9 foot tall upright canine, which once again, we talked about Dogman earlier. So this will be perfect. Fits right into the show. Massive 8 to 9 foot tall upright canine disrupts elk hunt in Grant County, Oregon. On Tuesday, June 11th, 2014, I was contacted by JS by email about an encounter that he experienced while elk hunting in Grant County, Oregon on the second day of the season in November of 2021. JS is a retired law enforcement officer as well as a former employee of Oregon Bureau of Land Management. He has also been an avid hunter and fisherman while growing up in rural Oregon town. So JS had plenty of outdoor and wildlife experience. JS and his father-in-law were on an elk hunting trip. Unfortunately, the father-in-law suffered an injury on the first day and was forced to remain at camp afterwards. There was an arrangement that the father-in-law would pick up JS at a designated time and location later in the day. The day of hunting was quite frustrating for JS since the elk herds were more skittish than usual. Many times the elk would easily spook and disperse. JS spent most of the morning tracking elk through a fairly rough terrain. In fact, it was an area in which was unfamiliar. At one point, JS found it necessary to remove some of his heavy clothing since the day was warming and he was starting to feel a headache develop. As he started removing his heavy jacket, placing it in his backpack, and then retrieving some water, he noticed movement in his right peripheral. As he closely observed the movement, he realized that he was within 50 feet of a hairy, black-colored creature that he did not recognize. As JS continued watching, he realized that this creature was upright and approximately 8 to 9 feet in height. The ears were the first feature that he distinguished, as they fixed high on the head and pointed. Also, the creature had a long snout, unlike that of a Sasquatch or a bear. In fact, he was close enough to see the bright yellow eyes that seemed to radiate light. The creature now watched JS intently and was obviously upset by his presence. The creature leaned against the 8 to 10 inch diameter hardwood tree, then suddenly began shaking the tree violently. JS did not hear any growling or any other sounds than the tree moving back and forth. The unknown creature then leaned forward, dropped its ears, and studied JS as he began to raise his weapon, which is a 270 caliber rifle. At this point, the creature stood fully upright. That is, when JS realized that the beast was canine-like. The body was described as looking like the werewolf in the Van Helsing film, extremely muscular with broad shoulders, heavy upper body, tapered waist, and thick arms and legs. JS flipped off the safety and lightly fingered the trigger, not knowing what to expect from the cryptid canine. He began to move toward a nearby old logging road to put distance between him and this beast. As he was walking, he was looking behind him, but the creature was no longer in sight. He began to move faster on the logging road, heading in the direction where his father-in-law was heading to meet him. After several minutes, JS began to hear movement in the thick brush as well as heavy footsteps. He was positive that the terrifying beast was following him. At this point, JS swung around and released a shot from the 270 caliber rifle in the direction of the sounds. JS heard the creature scamper away from the area. JS reached the rendezvous spot and waited nervously for his father-in-law. Just before the darkness started to descend, his father-in-law arrived. As soon as JS got into the vehicle, his father-in-law asked JS if he was feeling okay. It was obvious that JS was experiencing anxiety and fear after his harrowing encounter. JS did not disclose any details of his encounter with his father-in-law or his wife. In fact, after he began to research the creature, he decided not to tell anyone. Eventually, he did tell a friend who thought that JS was crazy. JS recently listened to my Phantom and Monsters radio channel and decided to come forward. JS has not been back to the location since that terrifying day, but he does plan to make the trip there this upcoming elk season, accompanied by several of his hunting friends. Note, after going over the details of the encounter, it seems to JS and myself that the upright canine was hunting elk, and that there may have been at least one other cryptid canine in the vicinity. The creature's physical display did indicate that it wanted JS out of the area as soon as possible so it could resume hunting elk. Once again, as in most of these cryptid canine encounters, there was no contact involved, though there was a determined attempt to move JS along without a negative outcome. Lon. Once again, Lon Strickler, phantomandmonsters.com. Okay, Moody Mongol saying you can't really hear my silky satin voice. You know, do something with the audio real quick, please. I'm hoping that's better. Check. Microphone check. All right, we're going to get into the final story here. phantomandmonsters.com, hand selected. So when I saw this one was also a creepy story. This is one I have a fear of black-eyed kids. As you know, the encounter that I had here at the house, I talked to you guys about. Okay, so I think that's, hold on. Let me adjust that for you guys. It likes to fight with the audio on the StreamYard, so give me just a second here. All right, I hope that's better for you. All right, so this is Black Eyed Kid. So I had an encounter myself, as you remember, with the lady who came up to our door in the middle of the day asking to use our shower, asking if she could come in and use our shower. She was not picked up on any cameras. She was not, when I look back at the cameras, we did not track her coming up the driveway or going back down the driveway. So this was pretty creepy. So Black Eyed Kids, it's quite all right. We have permission. Chris from Arkansas wrote to Darkness Radio about a bizarre black-eyed kid encounter he had in 2015. In 2015, around the end of April, beginning of May, I was in Oregon for work. I worked for a company that handled the customer service member privilege point-of-sale system with Planet Fitness, and I was there checking on new locations. Since Planet Fitness is a 24/7 establishment, I had to cater to all the shifts and would show up to each club multiple times during the day and night. One night at approximately 11:30 p.m., I was headed to Planet Fitness location in Beaverton, Oregon. My rental car had Bluetooth capabilities and was currently playing a coast-to-coast AM episode throughout the car's speakers. The episode was a George Norrie episode, and he had Rosemary Ellen Guiley on to talk about the Jinn. I remember this fact to be true, though, because George brought up the black-eyed kids phenomenon to her, and she felt it was Jinn-related. Looking back, that was a serious coincidence because what happened when I arrived at the club chilled me to the core. I'm a smoker, nasty habit, but it's my vice. When I arrived at the club, I decided to smoke in the parking lot with the driver's side window open on my rental so I could continue to listen to Coast to Coast AM and not be in the car because rentals fine you a couple $100 for smoking inside. The Planet Fitness there is an L-shaped strip in an L-shaped strip mall. I don't entirely remember all the stores in the strip mall, but the Planet Fitness is all the way to the end, and all the way to the left is a pharmacy of some kind. My passenger side was parallel to the Planet Fitness, and that was about 30 feet from a street light. The pharmacy was about 75 yards and obviously closed. I was leaning against the car smoking and playing on my phone and looked up at the pharmacy. In the light of the marquee style sign, I could see two people standing outside of it. For it being near midnight, I thought how weird it was someone to be at obviously closed pharmacy, but the thought was fleeting, and I was once again down to what was probably a safe bet. I'm assuming I was Facebooking on my phone. After a few seconds, I looked up. I noticed the two people I could now tell were kids or teenagers were about 20% closer. It struck me as odd. I didn't see them walking to that spot. They were just there, and now was my sole sarcasm, but more accurately was in my general direction. From this distance, I could tell both were wearing hooded sweatshirts. They were dark in color, and both kids had their hoods up. They were in the same area just outside the streetlight glow. It shone on them, but not enough to see very clearly. Looking back, this should have raised some flags, but I once again was back on my phone. I remember about this time, George and the guests were talking about evil spirit attachments from the Middle East in items and devices service members brought back home with them. Well, now I glanced back up again, and the kids were now about 20 to 35 feet away. They were once again outside the direct streetlight glow, but I could see them much clearer. This time, their heads were aimed down. I could not see their faces, but I could make out their clothes. One had an olive drab green hooded sweatshirt with no visible markings or insignia. The hoodie was over the top of what appeared to be a gray ball cap with once again no markings or insignia. Baggy, nondescript blue jeans and a black low-top shoes with no markings of any kind. The other was dressed very similar, the only difference being a navy blue zip-up hoodie and a hood over what looked to be a black ball cap, khaki pants, and white shoes. Same as the first. There was nothing to distinguish any brands on any articles of clothing. The kids were standing still. I hadn't seen them move to their current location, and they were almost frozen there, not moving at all. I don't know how or why, but I just went back to my phone, not bothered at all. I got a weird feeling almost instantly and looked up, and there they were, 5 feet in front of me and not moving, just closer, just outside the shine of the streetlight, still at ease. I tossed a cigarette butt underneath the car and asked, "What's going on, guys? Anything I can do for you?" The response I got was probably the most awkward thing in the story. But before I share it, I want you to know what I noticed just prior to the response. Their clothes were weird. They were too big. Not too big like kids wore in the 90s, but too big, like hand-me-downs, and they were faded. Everything they wore, you could tell the colors of it, but it was just, they were dingy, I guess. I could tell by physical build that these kids were males, and by the size, I would say 15-ish. So after I asked if there was anything I could do for them, here was their response. Best way I could think to express how weird it was is to lay it out like a script. So I'll illustrate this beneath, picking up after my question. Is there anything I can do for you guys? First kid said, please, kind sir. Kid number 2 says, may we borrow a cigarette? Kid number 1 says, it's very lonely at night. Kid number 2 then says, we only need 1 cigarette. Kid number 1 says, thank you. Kid number 2 says, please. After they finished speaking in unison, they slowly lifted their heads to show me their faces. I remember thinking it's kind of late for teenagers to be out on a Thursday, and almost as if they plucked that from my head, I heard, it's quite all right, we have permission. As soon as permission rolled off the second kid's lips, their faces were level with mine, showing me solid jet black eyes. I froze. My mind was going about 1,000,000 miles an hour because, damn it, I know what black-eyed kids are. Well, not what they are, but I know of them. I couldn't move or speak. Their faces were almost the definition of blank, almost because the edges around their slit, straight mouth began to curl over ever so slightly. But you could see it. The inside of my stomach began to get colder, and with all my might, I tried to turn my face, but I could not. The second kid took a step forward. The movement of shoes caught my eye, and I broke eye contact. I looked down, and the moment the eye contact was broken, everything I knew about black-eyed kid encounters rushed through my head, and I turned around and ran into the club. Now, when I say ran, I sprinted in loafers, and all 6'1", 250 pounds, screamed the whole way. The young kids who worked at the counter just stared at me when I came in. I tried my best to explain, but they weren't cool enough to have ever heard about black-eyed kids. I looked out the plate glass front and saw 2 of them standing side by side facing the club. When I saw them, chills ran down my spine. Wow. Black-eyed kids, guys. Never let them in your house. That's creepy. I've been to Planet Fitness in the middle of the night. I like going to the gym in the middle of the night. So I can almost imagine this story here. So once again, another awesome story from PhantomandMonsters.com. Thank you, Lon Strickler, for letting us procure that. We do appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and segue into a quick break while I go ahead and fix the camera issue that we're having right now. You guys don't go anywhere. We got about 15 minutes left, and maybe we can do something that you like. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Do not go anywhere. All right, issue fixed. Issue fixed. All right, let's go ahead now and finish out the last 14 minutes of the show, and let's do something a little fun. Some people agree, some people disagree, but we're gonna do it anyway. A little bit of trivia as we finish the last few minutes of the show on a Friday night. I hope everybody has been having a great time here tonight. We've had an awesome show thus far, and I want to go ahead and end it off with a little bit of trivia. So let me get this all set up, guys. Yes. Yes, let's see who wins tonight. Let's see who has the fast fingers tonight. All right, I got it up. Let me go ahead and get that set here. Give me just a second. Cancel that. Okay, here we go. Let's go. 13 minutes left. Let's go. All right, first question here. We're going to get right into it. Paranormal. What is the term for ghostly apparition that appears in the same spot repeatedly? What is the term for a ghostly apparition that appears in the same spot repeatedly? What is the term? Okay. I'll give that to Mothman. It's a residual haunting. Residual haunting would be the answer to that. Great job to Mothman. All right. What is the name of the ghost that is said to haunt the Tower of London? What is the name of the ghost that is said to haunt the Tower of London? The name of the ghost that is said to haunt the Tower of London. We got nobody. Anne Boleyn is the answer. Anne, Boleyn, as in Nancy. Anne Boleyn. That is the answer. Next question. What is the name? Which American Civil War battlefield is reputed to be one of the most haunted places in the United States? Which American Civil War battlefield is reputed to be one of the most haunted places in the United States? All right, I see it. PK Turtle Dub. It is Gettysburg. It is Gettysburg. Great job, PK Turtle Dub. I'm going to go ahead and mark that one. Great job on that one. What is the name of the spirit board used to communicate with the dead? What is the name of the spirit board used to communicate with the dead? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay, we'll give it to Bomber. It is a Ouija board. Don't play with the Ouija board, by the way. Don't play with the Ouija board. They're not good. Don't play with the Ouija board. Great job, Bomber. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Which planet in our solar system has been the focus of numerous UFO sightings and alien conspiracy theories? Not Earth. It's not Earth. Not a trick question. Which planet in our solar system has been the focus of numerous UFO sightings and alien conspiracy theories? Yes, Bomber, it is Mars. Mars. a place where I think we probably lived before. I think once they get a human there and is able to excavate or a, what do you call those things? A rover that's able to excavate. I think they're going to find human bones there. That's just my thought. Let's see. All right, next one. What is the term for a human who can communicate with spirits? What is the term for a human that can communicate with spirits? All right, looks like Bomber got it again. It is a medium. It is a medium. Great job, Bomber. All right, let's see. In which city is the haunted Stanley Hotel, which inspired Stephen King's The Shining? In which city is the haunted Stanley Hotel, which inspired Stephen King's The Shining? Which city, though? Yep, Jessica S. Estes Park, Colorado. In case you didn't know, now you know. Great job, Jessica S. on that one. Let's see. Which famous ship is said to be haunted by the spirits of those who died on board, including some from World War II? Which famous ship is said to be haunted by the spirits of those who died on board, including some from World War II? The Titanic is at the bottom of the ocean, guys, and that was World War One. So it is Queen Mary, man. Great job. Queen Mary. It is the Queen Mary. All right, let's see. What is the term for the ghostly sounds or voices captured on audio recordings? What is the term for the ghostly sounds or voices captured on audio recordings? All right, looks like Tomato Man got that. That's an EVP. EVP, which is electronic voice phenomena. Great job, Tomato Man. All right, jumping back up here. Let's see. Let me hop to my other list here. Okay. Which ancient Egyptian queen's tomb is rumored to be cursed, causing death and misfortune to those who disturb it? Which ancient Egyptian queen's tomb is rumored to be cursed, causing death and misfortune to those who disturb it? Don't see it. But you know what? I'm looking at the answer and I don't think they questioned it correctly. So I'm going to repose it. It's which ancient Egyptian king's tomb is rumored to be cursed, causing death and misfortune to those who disturb it? Ancient Egyptian king, not queen. There we go. I don't know why it listed it as queen, but that wasn't correct. So yeah, it looks like Super Crazy Movie Geek got it. Tutankhamun or King Tut. Yeah, Yeah, I can only go by what is written here, so I know that was wrong though. Let's see. What is the term for the hypothetical aliens that resemble human beings and are often depicted in science fiction? What is the term for the hypothetical aliens that resemble human beings and are often depicted in science fiction? It's not a particular type, so it's not a particular species. What do they call aliens? Ah, there we go. I see it. Simon the Light Bulb. They're humanoid. Humanoids. All right, we'll try to squeeze like 2 more in real quick. Humanoid is the correct answer. Area 51 keeps saying Christina Gomez. Christina Gomez is a nice girl. Let's see. Wow. Okay. What is the name of the creature from Appalachian folklore that is said to be a tall, thin figure with a face covered in moss? What is the name of the creature from Appalachian folklore that is said to be tall, thin figure with a face covered in moss? I've never heard this one. I would have thought Swamp Thing too, but it's not it. And if you don't get it, that's okay. I'll give you the answer. They call it the Green Man. The Green Man. Appalachian folklore. So just keep that in your database. It's the Green Man. Let's see. Let me do 2 easy ones. Okay, what is the name of the paranormal phenomena where objects are moved or thrown by an unseen force? What is the name of the paranormal phenomena where objects are moved or thrown by an unseen force? Yes, poltergeist. Poltergeist is correct, Bomber. It is Poltergeist, one of my favorite movies. However, the poltergeist, the spirit, whatever in Paranormal Activity is creepy to this day. I don't like watching that movie alone. All right, let's do one more. In 1951, which 1951 science fiction film featured an alien visitor named Klaatu who comes to Earth with a warning? Which 1951 science fiction film features an alien visitor named Klaatu who comes to Earth with a warning? Had a robot with them as well. They remade the movie. Yeah, there we go. See how we are living. Got it. It's the day the Earth stood still. The remake, nah, not so much. The remake, not so much. But the original, great film. Okay, all right, so we'll just do that real quick. Let's go ahead and see who got what, and so we can get up out of here. We got Mothman with 1, 2, 3. All right, so Mothman with 3, PK Turtle Dove with 1, Bomber with 1, 2, 3, 4, Jessica S with 1, Super Crazy Movie Geek with 1, Simon the Likeable with 1, See How We Are Living with 1. So the winner is Bomber takes it tonight, wins the trivia. Yeah, that's, close out the show nice and fun. 17 minutes. Why not do trivia? You guys like it, and I like it too. And you learn from it, right? You may not have won in numbers, but you win with knowledge, right? Knowledge, things you didn't know before. So we moved your needle some, right? That's the key. That's always the key. So awesome stuff. Okay, so let's go ahead and get ready to wrap this thing up here. Let me go ahead and pause our music here as we get ready to go. So, yes, awesome show. Definitely want to thank our guest for today, Ronald Murphy, the cryptic guru, for coming on in and lacing us up with some of this knowledge and perspective, right? I think that was a great conversation, something we should definitely do again, and we will do again here in the near future. You guys seem to like it, and I really do like to key into what our audience likes. Definitely want to thank our super chatters, Reverend Cosmic Joe Chronicles and Deb from Sacramento for their contributions tonight. Thanks for your support of Spaced Out Radio. And to all our listeners and viewers all around the world, all around this globe, this planet we call Earth, thank you for tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I want to thank you for coming in. And also, I have to tell you about tomorrow. Let me stop here. We have an after-hour show tomorrow with Deb Shakti. So you got to make sure that you guys, if you're here tonight, make sure you come on over tomorrow. You see how we do in after hours. It's going to be a fun time. Deb Shakti is always a great guest. So make sure you guys are here for that. Shout out again to Lee and Jackson Lee. Let me get that right. With Element 115, their show earlier today. Make sure you guys come back and check them out next Friday as well. To all the viewers and listeners around the globe, thanks for tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. And what's that, you ask? We own the night, guys. See you guys tomorrow. You guys take care.
Conversations that move the needle.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.